Hello and welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport, and we are back with more V8 Superstars action, this time looking at the sequel, The Next Challenge, made by our favourite creators at Black Bean and Milestone. The Italian company's return just a year after the first game was released with this slightly upgraded sequel. It's not much more than a DLC pack really, but there are some mild improvements, and we will discuss those in depth. So remember to subscribe to the channel. Thank you to everyone who already has and helped me reach 500 subscribers. And with that, let's begin.
Welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport.
So as you can imagine, for a game that came out just a year later, not a whole lot has changed. But one thing that has is it's got a decent roster of drivers and cars. They actually managed to get all the licenses necessary to fill out the game, so there's no mustards here. It's also got more tracks than the first one. If you can remember, the first game had 10 tracks. This one has 11. The game itself, well, from a graphics point of view, it looks a bit better. Playing this game made me realise that the colours in the first game looked a bit washed out, and here they are a bit crisper, a bit fresher. It's quite nice to look at. Not a bad start. If I had one complaint about the way it looks, I would say the heads-up display is a bit more cluttered, but it's not awful, it's all very functional. The AI is pretty much the same, everyone is still on Scalextric's tracks. You don't get a lot of movement from the AI. On easy mode you can pretty much claw your way through the field without any difficulty and win every race by about 30 seconds. On medium difficulty, it's still far too easy, and after a few races you're going to put it up to legend just because you want a challenge. Even at legend difficulty, it doesn't take too long to get to grips with it. So just like the first game, it's a pretty short arcadey racer. Perfectly functional, just not a lot of substance to it. So in that sense, it hasn't really improved that much. Just the licenses and a slight graphical improvement. In one way it does differ, and in a way it completely destroys this game, is they got the handling completely wrong. In the first game it was arcadey, yes, but there was a lightness to the controls that made it feel like you were floating from corner to corner. It was actually very satisfying to play. This game, somehow they've made the cars feel very, very heavy. It's like you're lumbering around like a big old bowl of pudding. It actually manages to make a game that should be perfectly playable actually kind of a pain to play. It's just not very pleasant, and I just can't understand how it happens. Like the first game, there isn't really anything special to it. If it was a meal, it would be a bowl of chips with no seasoning and no sauce. But at the end of the day, it's still a perfectly functional meal. It's just not very exciting. This game, it's the same bowl of chips, but they've sprinkled a little bit of salt on it. But before you can tuck in, they kick it off the table and stomp on it. Although it is the only game you can play as Andrea Chiesa that I know of. If that's something you want. And if that is, then you're weird. I still have a problem with the wet races. It doesn't feel like you're racing in the rain. It's not really any slipperier. And it's still just kind of a shiny track. The spray effects are better, but there's still no actual rain coming down. It just goes to show that nice graphics don't make a game. The thing that amazes me most is that the first game sold enough copies to warrant a sequel. I said at its peak, it may have had 30,000 fans in Italy, plus a few more around the world. You're still probably not talking much more than 100,000 people who ever watched the V8 Superstars. So for it to sell enough copies to get a sequel blows my mind. I couldn't actually find the number of games sold for these games. I guess they're too small to be reported on. And they are pretty cheap on eBay if you want to buy a copy. At least they got rid of the penalty system. You can pretty much cheat to your heart's content now. Now, the actual modes in the game are pretty much the same as before. Time attack replaces training, but they're pretty much the same thing. Your standard quick race and race weekend. The championship's not very long, and because it's too easy, it won't take you very long to complete. But the challenges are back, and these again are probably the best part of the game. Although they are still very, very short. It will only take you an hour or two to get through them all. And again, the difficulty is so low that it really isn't that difficult to get the platinum medals. Well, I think in this game it was S ranks. So for your achievement hunters out there, this is probably a decent game to buy. The damage models are better as well. If you remember the first game, it was just bumpers hanging off. In this one you have smashed glass and your headlights and rear lights all broken up. It's not amazing. I've seen PS2 games with better damage models, but it's better. Honestly, if this game just had the controls of the first game, or the feel of the handling, it would probably be as perfect as it's going to get. It's still a very much middle of the road racer game, of which there are thousands. The only interesting thing about these games was they were licensed to the International Superstar series. Did not expect that series to get games, and yet it got two. Two very average games, but still 2 games. I guess my final thoughts on these arcade racers is, I would honestly say just buy the first one. It's worth playing, it's decent enough if you like the series. Get the second one if you're curious. They're not expensive to buy, so why not? And you can probably get your fill of them in a few hours. And they're not bad pick up and play games. Like if you just want to do a quick race around Imola, this game's pretty okay for it. But if you want anything with more depth, there's hundreds of racing games out there. I'm not sure what they could have done to add more substance. This was before the International GT Sprint Cup, whatever it was called, so they couldn't even add a support race to it. But there must have been something they could have done. I'm not exactly asking for a in-depth story mode, just a little bit more. Given that the series is dead, you're never going to get any more games out of it, unless there's a publisher out there who really hates money. So this is all you get. And it's a worthy effort from 2 small studios. So there it is, the V8 Superstars Xbox 360 games. Thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe, Leave a comment, leave your thoughts below, leave a like and a share, and have a good one.